benefits of that much more strongly. So we didn't have anything done last year. 3 through 6, 1 and 2 had that laser lifting process done. This year we had 3 and 4 the same laser lifting process, and we got 1, 2, 5, and 6 resurfaced. So again, we're going through that slight transition process with 3 and 4. And then looking at next year, we'll be doing 5 and 6, and that's going to be our long tenure plan. We'll be doing the same resurfacing for 1 through 4. But this year was the most services and the most funding that we've ever actually received from a maintenance standpoint.
Thank you, Brian.
For those.
And I've heard several people, and I agree with the comment that the 1, 2, 3, and 4, really 5 and 6 as well, are in the best condition we've seen in quite a while. So if anybody has any other input they want to give on that, please.
And one thing to add to that too, we did address some drainage issues that should help the sustainability of what we've done on the court resurfacing. So it was kind of a two-part process to make sure not only did we get the courts up to a high standard, but we put in some drainage to make sure when we do get rains like we've had, we've tested that process this year and they've held up much better. So it's a more all-encompassing approach that we've taken this year.
Very good.
Yeah, the other comment might be that you've also put signs up on the courts when the courts are too soft, make sure people stay off the courts, and that's been helpful too. They're trying to minimize damage.
Okay. Anybody else? I'm going to take no comment as being support. So, several comments have been made by members about the hard court conditions. Can you talk about what the plans are for those, please?
Well, we are in the finishing process of getting those pressure washed. That's actually been a really lengthy process for us to go through this year. So that's something that with our resources and our labor that we could accomplish this year. Again, what we are putting funding into is the refurbishment of those soft courts. Because the hard courts get a much lower utilization, we're prioritizing the soft court restoration over this 3-year period. With the fact that Court 7 really is just used for the ball machine. Court 8's not used a whole lot. We do have a pickleball plan for that this year, but we're going to do those sideways to where that, you know, the challenges that those courts have aren't really are mitigated. But our plan is to, once we're done with, again, these are very costly, these laser lifting processes are very costly. Once we're finished with that full restoration, then we'll have additional funding to look at the
What I'm hearing is it's unlikely that the hard courts are going to be redone this year. Is that
correct?
Probably a good assumption.
I'd say not unlikely, it's not gonna.
Not going to happen.
Yeah, and we have, just to dive in a little bit deeper, we have had some kind of, I guess, assessment is the word I would use, and we're trying to, we've had a lot of input, a lot of opinions, and we've sought expert opinions on, is it a rebuild, is it a patchwork, and we want to, I think the worst thing we could do is find the resources, allocate the funds, do a rebuild, and be in the same boat we're in a few years. And so we're really trying to work through the process to make sure whatever decision we make in the future is a sustainable, going to provide the quality surface that we're looking for. And is that going to be hardcore? Is it going to be some sort of a hybrid? What that's going to be, we don't have an answer for you at this point.
I think generally speaking, most of us would be happier having to go further out if the fundamentals were done there instead of just resurfacing. If anybody disagrees with that, fine. But we'd rather it get fixed. And Glass is a good example of that. They were resurfaced a year ago, and they're already cracking again. So you got to do something on the underlayment if you're going to keep the running courts.
Yeah, and that's kind of where we're trying to figure out what's that look like, what's a sustainable product for a long period of time if we decide to allocate funds to that. But to Ryan's point, with the majority of play being on the soft courts, that was our highest priority as we launched this kind of reinvestment into tennis last year. Was we wanted to take the high traffic, high utilization pieces first.
Anybody else have a comment on that?
Yeah, I'd like to kind of question the logic behind putting the pickleball on Court 8.
Okay.
As opposed to what?
Well, first of all, pickleball is a very high injury rate, number one. That's one thing I'd like to address. People don't realize how high the injuries are when you start moving the pickleball. And then second of all, I guess the question might be why put it on Court 8 where it's so visible versus putting it back, say example, where the basketball courts are.
See, we can always do that. That it is a it's a mobile court. So what we're implementing is a program that is going to have mobility. We're going to be able to use Court 8, given the fact that it is the most underutilized court currently, with the fact that the Court 7 really has utilization from a ball machine standpoint.
Right.
Court 8 will allow us to put, again, these are temporary courts that can be broken down, put back up horizontally on either side of the net.
But you gotta mark up the court with lines, right?
Yes, we have to mark up the court with lines, but that can again be easily resolved from a take down, put back standpoint. I feel like you think that there's more play on Court 8 than there
No,
actually
it's just
is.
the image and the risk of putting pickleball right there front and center. And this really, I mean, for those of us that are tennis players, putting pickleball front and center kind of puts us in a retirement village type of environment here, which you need to be careful about.
Does anybody else have an opinion on this?
Yeah, is it an image
Go ahead.
issue or is it an issue of, physical duress? Is that what you're
There's 3 or
concerned
4
about?
issues. I mean, yeah. The bigger issue is people thinking to move on to hard courts and pickleball, and it's much easier on your body. The reality of it is the injury rate is much, much higher.
I don't think we're gonna resolve
That could be, but it's
No,
gonna
no,
be,
I just want to bring it up.
Okay.
it's gonna be the same if you move to the basketball courts. You're still gonna have, it's the same,
Right,
same
sure.
court.
Got a comment over here.
Yes,
I'll come
I
in.
actually worked at a pickleball club, and it was tennis and pickleball, and we became more popular with pickleball because as the population in our area was aging, they went from tennis to pickleball. As far as injuries, I worked with the club for 3 years. There wasn't any spike in injuries. I was on the courts if anybody got injured. It was more tennis actually with pickleball. And the numbers were larger with pickleball than they were with tennis because you can have 8 players on one tennis court. So you take the numbers of that, the injuries for tennis was far larger than it was for pickleball.
Or hard court tennis, not clay court tennis.
Go ahead, got another comment
It's
here.
all hard court.
Hard court tennis.
I'm not a pickleball player, but in Florida where I live, pickleball is so crazy in Florida. They built 6 courts and now they're adding another 6. Our tennis courts, there's only 12. Both of them are crazy busy. And I agree with you, the people that are leaving tennis are going to pickleball because they feel it's less injuries and easier on their knee, but I vote for the tennis court.
Yeah, let me try
I mean,
to shut this off. The question of whether there's more or less injuries with pickleball is not something we can address.
Sure.
Let's stop talking about
Sure,
that.
sure.
The question is, is Court 8 all right or the basketball court? And you kind of heard some input from there. Can I have a quick show of hands? Who's okay with Court 8? Raise your hand.
Pickleball?
Yes, pickleball. And who would rather have them on basketball court?
Or the basketball.
Okay, so you've got kind of a split input here. Just take that into account, Ryan, and going forward, what you decide to do.
Very good, thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you.
All right, thank you. All right, item 3, Tess, this is really, it was a problem or an issue when we had courts 3 and 4 out. You and I talked about it the other day. I think you and Karen talked about it. But can you comment? The question is scheduling of lessons when we have busy days with lots of courts taken up. Can you just comment on your plans there?
Yeah, so kind of what we talked about this winter a little bit with the organized play was Monday, Tuesday, I'll be able to take lessons during that time frame, and then Wednesday, Friday, either play in or sometimes it's just depends on the week. But what we're running into a little bit is Friday is a very popular day. So we have the men playing, and then we have a couple groups of the ladies playing. So what Karen and I talked about is, as much as possible, I'll just be flexible with my Friday scheduling. So scheduling 7 to 9 a.m. and then maybe I have a kid's lesson or 2 in that, and I play in the hard courts with those, and then after 11. So it's kind of just both ways. I'm not saying never ever will I do one thing or another, but in general, we'll plan on, I can do lessons Monday, Tuesday, playing in Wednesday, Friday.
Or other times?
Or other times, I'm trying to work around, because I get 9 to 11 is the best time for everybody to play tennis.
And as I said, that's gotten much better with 3 and 4 in service. I think the input from most of the members is when we play, particularly doubles, there's 4 people involved. And sometimes your lessons are 4 people, a lot of times there's 1 person.
Mhm.
So And you can also tell to some degree when you look at the schedule and the signups, like today for men's courts, you know, that you can look and kind of see where the big problems are and hopefully work around them. So that's all we're asking. We don't want you to stop doing lessons for sure.
Fortunately, now we have 6 courts. Some of these
Much
things
better,
are, you know.
much better, no doubt about that. Karen, you want to add anything?
No.
Anybody else? Okay, very good.
Good job.
Item 4 is mine, and that is, we used to have a court reservation system. I think you guys have some long-range plans to put one in that's more permanent, like, let's say, what we have for golf. But in the meantime, I'd really like to see a manual reservation system put back in. I know, Jess, you have some concerns over that. I'd like to see it at Valley and Glassy. And my big issue there is, particularly for those of us from Mountain Park and Valley and Glassy that play down here, not knowing if we're gonna have a court when we get here is a pretty big downside. And when 3 and 4 were out of service, that was a bigger problem. It's not as big a problem now. But I don't understand the downside of having a manual sign-up system until we put the permanent system in. So Tess or Brian, can you address what you see as the problem with going back to the manual system we used in the past?
So the problem that, as I see it, and like you had said, we are betting out the long-term solution to this, but the problem as I see it with the manual reservation system is that, so one thing in particular that you're referencing is the weekends, right? So on the weekends here, we might have 1 to potentially 2 people staffing the center, and that's a very dynamic shift. They are concerned about the fitness portion, the aquatics. I mean, we've got 4 bodies of water here. They're concerned with the bocce as well, and then also these 8 courts worth of utilization. This is something that I can see getting out of control very quickly from an administrative standpoint, when really the risk, as it relates to now the fact that we have 6 to 8, you have 8 available courts consistently from a usage standpoint, really is minimized, and the challenges that we were having a month and a half ago pre-having all these services done mitigated. So to me, the bigger issue is people coming and jumping on court at 1:30 and then you all coming at 2 and saying, oh, we were reserved for this, and then the person who's at the front desk now has to come down and kick people off.
But why don't you just have the sign-ups visible? That's what, you know, you could just have a sign-up sheet, something down there in a glass showing the schedule.
All right, so let's say that we go to this.
You know, if it's hidden in a desk, yeah, that's useless. But if it's wide open and the reservations are done and they're visible to people to see that the reservation schedule is right there, then there's 6, like you said, there's 6 courts, so then I don't see the problem with that.
So we go and we put up the sign.
Like other courts I've been to, other country clubs, I just don't.
Speaking of that, has anybody ever belonged to a tennis club that didn't have a
Yeah.
reservation system?
Right, no.
I've belonged to several of them. I've never
Right,
seen one
that's,
that didn't have.
this is like normal procedure, I don't get where we're.
So one thing, we are building and developing the tennis club side of this. We are a multifaceted facility. This is by far the largest amenity footprint that we offer at the Cliffs from a wellness standpoint. But I also at the same time would not classify us as a thoroughly developed tennis
Yeah,
club.
but we are. We've been playing it for years.
Well,
Just because you're not caught up doesn't mean the rest of us.
well,
I just don't get that. You know,
I don't see the downside, Ryan.
I just don't
We've
see
ran
it.
it for years with just the manual system, and John's got a good point about putting a sheet down there, but I'm not aware there was ever a problem with employee
Right.
being diverted to deal with that. Every time it's happened in the past, as long as you can say, we had the court reserved at 1 o'clock, people will move.
And there's more courts available. So.
And the more courts available. So I don't understand the problem, because we had it for years and it worked, and now we've gone away from it. Why?
see, the understanding that I have is that it was not a successful program when I came on. It did not seem to me that we looked like well prepared to accomplish that in a consistent manner without creating more conflict than we were resolving.
Conflict.
When do we have a system here?
Yeah, I never knew there
There
was
was
one.
Carol used to have a book, and we had one in Glassy 2 where you sign up ahead of time. You call in and say, I want the Tuesday, 2 courts on Tuesday, Sunday at 2 o'clock, I might say.
What years to what years was this?
Last
Ever since I was here until about 6 months ago. Now, you may not have been aware of it, but it was there.
That's why I'm saying that having it hidden
Never
in
knew
the desk
it,
is no
never knew
good.
it existed.
That's why it needs to be out and visible.
And maybe it wasn't advertised, but it was there, and then I've used it for the Sunday 2 o'clock group. Okay, I've used the one up at Glassy for the same kind of thing. Bigger issue at Glassy, because there are only 2 songs. Look, we're not gonna resolve this today, but you, I guess, let's do another show of hands. Who feels like we ought to have a reservation system here for our courts?
Okay.
I don't think anybody would argue against.
If it's a manual system, is it a manual system being monitored from the front desk, or is it a manual sign-up at the court?
Well, that's what I'm saying, we can just do it ourselves. We don't need the involvement of any
Yeah, but I
place.
think it's a little more involved if it's, you know, to Ryan's point, if it's done by
Right,
the front desk.
Right.
There's only 2 people here on the weekend. and one or
right,
two.
that's why we should do it
If it's
ourselves.
down there,
What's your-
how's that managed?
Good point, John.
Yeah, there is a program called reservemycourt.com that's used by the actual facilities, and it's all computerized. You have to reserve it within a certain number of days of play. And you really don't usually have to have anyone there to do it. It's all done on the
Or
computer.
Chelsea,
So-
Chelsea's the one we use in Florida.
If we go to an automated one, which we've researched and vetted, Jonas, which is our operating system, and for those of you that play golf and sign up with Tee Times, that's through Jonas's platform. They have a court reservation system. So
We're fine with that. It's what do we do in the meantime is what we're talking about. If you're gonna implement that the next month, you know, we're great. But my impression is it's not gonna happen anywhere near this.
Well, so when we first talked about this, going back 2 months ago, I think, 6 weeks ago, when we had some courts down, I received some feedback, negative feedback about court reservation systems. So, you know, it's great that it seems like we have an overwhelming support for it, and we can chase that down, and it seems like we have some strong opinions that we should have it. The initial feedback we got was kind of, it works, don't screw it up, we know when we play. So,
Speaking of that, if there's some people that would like to express the other side that don't want
Yeah.
reservations, just speak up now.
Yeah, I'd like to hear that.
In 10 seconds.
I just one
In 10
question. What is the penalty if you book it and you don't show up? What kind of?
There probably is none, and that's a good
There's
point.
not on the computer.
That isn't, yeah, that's another challenge.
Well, for us, it's if it rains. I mean,
Well, no.
No,
sure,
but
we
what
show
we're
up
saying
every
is-
single time.
no, what we're saying is if you reserve courts so that you have the opportunity to come play and then decide not to, and other people weren't
Yeah, I
able
get
to
that,
play.
that's like Tee Times.
Right, exactly. So, you know, I think if we're gonna do it, we wanna roll it out in an effective, fair manner and have policies and procedures in place. And we're happy to do that. We're happy to chase that down and.
Yeah, we're gonna work out something else now.
Yeah, but we'd like to work out as many bugs up front before we launch it to keep the member.
There's no penalty for not showing up for
Would you
it.
please consider putting a sign-up sheet on the
Yeah,
courts
there's a lot of
as in the short term,
There's a lot of-
until you put your big system in place?
The only problem with that down at the courts is that day, I have a gal who could not be here who said, I'd like to have my tennis team up here, but I need 4 courts. And how am I gonna do that? And she'd have to plan way ahead. Or if you have company coming in and you want to have a family affair on the courts, in other
You're
words,
saying we're having to go out a week or two?
right.
Okay.
Yeah, well, you're right.
Well, I can see putting limits on how far ahead you can reserve courts. I mean, to me,
Chelsea's 1 week.
more than 2 or 3 weeks is probably not reasonable.
So with that, what do you think? So, I mean, since we're kind of taking a straw poll, what's a reasonable amount of time in advance that you think you should be able to reserve?
1 week.
1 week max.
I'd say 1 or 2 weeks, yeah.
I was planning a family that 2 weeks.
And we also need to consider maintenance issues. There are times when we need to run sprinklers, right, on those? I don't know, when it gets dry in the summer, does that require? So you gotta work that timing in too.
Which
and
to
that's
me, having a
weather
reservation
dependent.
system where you can see that there's a group
Then
schedule
you know
too,
the
lets you know
water.
if you're gonna sprinkle, you need for that.
That's right. That would
Well,
be
and that's
good.
gonna require staff to
Well,
handle that,
I
maintenance.
guess what I'm thinking is not having any input is not as good as having some input about when people are gonna be playing. Because you can imagine if you came out to play and the sprinklers were on and you couldn't play, again, driving 30 minutes to get here,
Yes.
pretty big downside.
Now, I worry about the sign up on the court, because if you live in Glacier, you live up top like me, and you have a change in plans, you're not gonna come down here just to cross your name off the list. There has to be some mechanism.
you're absolutely right. You're absolutely right. That's the only one.
What I would do is ask somebody that lives at the Valley, come and try it.
Right. You know, it's not very.
I'm not as hung up about Being down there is a good idea. All right, we gotta stop here. I think you've heard pretty strong input that we'd like to have some kind of reservation system. And I'll personally say this, I don't wanna wait 2 years for something permanent to be put in, so. Please consider doing something that would allow us to make reservations, particularly for those who live at the top of a mountain or live on Glassy or Mountain Park, that can know before they come down whether courts are available.
Okay.
All right? Thank you for letting me go over it. Okay, next one, feedback on the 48-hour lead time for signups. I'll just open that up to the group to see. I've heard some negative.
I'm just like a number of times, like Sunday afternoon is when I finally figure out my schedule and I'm late. And I'm not the only, I have
I've heard
6,
that.
7 people I've had the same complaints.
This is for leagues now?
Yeah.
48-hour lead time.
For leagues?
For
The
league.
men's.
For organized play.
For organized play.
Men's,
Well, women's any play.
Yeah, we went from 24-hour to 48 hours.
Yes, for leagues only, okay.
Right, go ahead.
The other issue is it'd be nice if there were a specific mechanism for subs. In other words, that you know that there are people that can fill in for you, so that if you have to back out, you can, that there's a list, and there's some people who say, yeah, I'm available if necessary, or something like that.
Which right now, Tess, you do through your emails, but that's kind of a load on you, isn't it?
Yeah, I mean,
But it
mostly
cuts
if
off, the
people.
signups cut off at a certain point.
Right.
Right, so
So it is-
usually
That's
people
the
are
problem.
emailing me if they do want to play, and either I can get them in, or I say, hey, can you be listed as a sub? And then if people back out like a day or so before, I'm just like, who is here?
Well,
First
you
of all.
realize that you can cancel even though registration's closed, because I did that the other day,
Yeah.
even though it was closed.
Can you comment on why we went from 24 to 48 hours? That might be good for us to understand that. with the meeting.
Sure, I mean, we discussed that a couple months ago, but what was happening with the night before, it was very difficult to find even numbers for doubles play. And we all love playing doubles so much that now, with a little bit more notice, I'm able to find even numbers. Like today, for example, thank you. I'm able to find 4 even courts rather than a court playing singles and rotating in. So, I mean, I think it's gonna take a little bit more time to adjust to it. We've only been really into it for about a month, so I think it's a little bit soon to make
Well, that's more than a month,
a couple months.
yeah.
I think if there's a downside to this, it is that it might discourage play. I've heard some
Yeah.
people say, I wanted to play.
Yeah.
I tried to sign up. I
Sunday afternoon is, well, for us it's Tuesday, I'm only talking about Tuesday, because I don't know about Wednesday or, Sunday afternoon, you think, what am I gonna do next week? And I'm late. 10 in the morning, I'm late.
You know what it is?
But-
You guys don't play on Mondays.
Right.
They do.
Right.
Sunday night's not early enough. It's not early enough for her to put our courts together for Monday. If it was Sunday night, you guys play Tuesday, it doesn't matter.
Right.
But for the
I mean, it's either.
Sunday
I don't know,
night,
it's
48
either
hours
way, I don't
gave
know.
Tessa more time to put it together.
Does anybody else have any comments?
I personally think it's just a matter of getting used to 48
Yeah,
hours.
probably more than planning better.
Yeah.
John?
As the point was made by this lady earlier, you have to register 2 days in advance, but you can cancel the day before. And so the point about trying to find somebody, because I know you called me that time, thinking I was going to be there, and I canceled out the day before,
Right.
puts you back in the same pickle. So if you can get out within 24 hours, you haven't solved the problem, trying to find
You're right about that.
so I think if the system is consistent about the time frame, and I'm like everybody else, you know, my schedule is kind of fluid depending on what else is going on. And so if I make the commitment early, I may have to back out versus when I know I'm going to be able to play. So I'm not solving your problem for you. All I'm saying is the solution you have right now is not solving your problem.
Cliff?
I don't think there's any way to solve this problem. You're gonna have, it's gonna be 24 hours, 48 hours, there's too many variables here.
Right.
There's no solution to this, I'm sorry.
All right. Any other comments?
Let me say that the 48-hour system for me seemed to work out really well. It did. At first, I didn't feel like I said, man, this is not, it didn't fit, but once I did it up here, it worked. You know,
Which is the same thing.
and if I didn't get to play, that's okay too.
Go ahead.
So my issue, and this is probably to you, is, and Tessa knows that, I can't reserve on my phone, on an iPhone. And I used to be able to, then I couldn't, then I could, now I can again. And that's what I use, is my cell phone, is my computer. I can't, it never lets me register.
Okay, so
Then I have to-
talk to Ryan. He fixed me up, I have the same issue.
Anybody else?
I
It sounds
have
like.
no idea.
Sounds like you can talk about it, he can give you a fix. Anybody else have any comments on that? We need to move on.
I mean, I sign
We need
in
to move
for
on.
everything, for golf and everything on my phone, but tennis,
I think, talk to Tom after the meeting, apparently he had a similar problem and it got solved. Does anybody else have any comments on this? What I'm hearing is that 48 hours is probably okay to stay with, there's some problems with it, but I'm not hearing an overwhelming move to go back to 24.
I mean, the ladies
Leave it where it is.
were, like, we haven't had hardly any issues. Like, you seem to be doing really well registering Friday, 5 PM for the full week. You know, there's been like only 2 instances of
Well,
cancellation.
that's the only thing I warn you about, is you don't know of the people who tried to sign up and couldn't, because
Well,
of
usually
too late.
they email me.
They may email you, or they may not.
Maybe
Well,
make
that's
it
what I'm
clear
saying.
that you want
Yeah.
people to email
That's
you.
true, I could include something like that in my next newsletter, like if you do this in registration.
That, I think that's maybe a way to try to do it. And I know of at least 2 people who said, I didn't, wasn't able to sign up, and they weren't aware they could email. Okay, let's move on. Schedule for Friday men's tennis.
It's just, we had a lot of issues with Fridays, and Thursday here is ladies' golf day. The men cannot golf. Why don't the men move Friday men's tennis to Thursday men's tennis when our courts are very empty, thus solving our big, rather big Friday issue? Just
Yay.
scheduling it makes sense. So,
Yay.
Comments, please.
Except
I
we're just
would
talking about
agree.
valley golfers. There's Mountain Park and Glassy.
Let's go one at a time.
You know, it makes sense to me. Of course, I'm just trying to keep peace in the family.
I'm not sure we can listen to your end.
But having said that, it does seem to me to make a great deal of sense, other than we've always done it this way. To move it from, you know, Friday to Thursday where there's little play, seems to be a pretty nice, reasonable, logical accommodation.
Okay, any other comments?
Does men's golf on Mountain Park or Glassy, is that on a Thursday?
Yes.
Wait a minute,
Travel.
men's golf day is what? day?
Travel group
Mountain
is
Park.
on Thursday
Travel groups, there's.
for John and Buffalo.
Okay.
I was gonna say, the schedule's been this way ever since I've been a member of the list. Everybody's got their schedules worked around Fridays with the tennis center, so you booked other things during the week. I don't know why you're asking people at Mountain Park and Glassy to go ahead and change up all the schedules to accommodate the one group here.
Would be a year in advance.
yeah, if we give you, we're not saying to do it next
Maybe a year in
week, but
advance.
like to change it maybe in
Yeah,
September
Yeah,
or,
but I can't change my golf group because they don't play tennis.
What other comments?
They don't care.
Any other comments?
How many women's group played on Friday? I thought there was only 2 groups.
well, they're getting to be more.
Well, one of
We
the
have
groups-
5 and
one of the
6
groups has 2
courts
courts.
most days.
And they're all, they got roll groups now.
And we have a lot of golfers. Eileen, Luann Loper, Eileen Smith, Mary Mueller, myself, Wendy's a golfer. Yeah,
Maybe I'm oversimplifying this, but I think ultimately it's up to the men who play on Friday to decide, are we willing to go to Thursday or not? Is that a fair statement, or should we be made to do that whether we want to or not? So, Ken, of the guys that play on Fridays, let's do a show of hands there. Who's okay with moving to Thursday? All right, and who does not want to move to Thursday? Let's move to Thursday, and just shut up for a minute. Who does not want to move to Thursday? I got 1, 2, 3, 4 different people. I don't know how to resolve this, Karen. I don't
Who doesn't
know.
care?
Well, can't you do a written survey
Could,
on the men who play tennis?
could.
Why don't you start at 11?
Everybody's not here.
We play from 9 to 11, you play from 11 to 1.
Right.
well, that's, you know, that's certainly not preferable to the ladies as the temperatures get warmer,
Yeah.
so, but absolutely, that's an option for you all too.
I mean, we play at 8 and we've moved it to 7. We've actually gotten on there at 7 on Fridays to make sure we're off, but.
But we just have more and more ladies that want to play.
Yeah.
Fridays is, and let's face it, we have company on a Friday. Friday's another day for guests to.
We understand the inconvenience it creates for you, it creates an inconvenience for some men as well, and we understand that, right? We appreciate that. I don't know how to
It
resolve
just
it.
makes so much more sense on Thursdays.
Unless you're the person who has to change your golf arrangement because you've been moved from Friday to Thursday, then it won't make sense to you then. John, for instance. You're gonna have to make a decision on whether you play golf or tennis.
Like I do.
What's that?
I said, like I do.
Like you do on Friday.
Right, yeah.
Right, he can't play on Friday.
Right.
Well, he just elects to play.
Right, just as.
I don't know how to resolve it, I really don't.
No, I don't have another group on Friday to join.
If we want to do some kind of poll, you'd have to send a message to Friday men's players and get them to say whether they're okay with moving to Thursday, I guess. But even if you've got, let's say it's split 50-50, how do you decide that? You're willing to
It's worth
upset?
doing, it's worth doing the poll.
You
Say
weren't
again?
gonna do it
I think it's
immediately.
worth doing the poll. I think it would be worth for Tess to send out, she knows who plays on Friday. Just send it out, see, you may get no response, in which case, you're nowhere. But if you get a response, you have some data.
Well, the other option is to split 50-50, you have 3 courts men, 3 courts women, and only the first 12 men can play.
Limit it to 12 on
Try
Friday?
that.
Although that doesn't seem, I mean, if they're gonna have an organized men's day, that doesn't seem like a very nice
They
accommodation
can
there.
organize
I
that day on
agree with
Thursday
that.
as well.
How difficult is it for you?
I can organize moving day on Friday, move to Thursday.
They have golf or
Yeah,
something on Thursday.
Ladies golf.
Oh, we have golf on Thursday.
What about 3 and 3 split on Thursday and Friday?
It's
Say again, please?
it's the organized league stuff,
3
John.
and 3 split, 3 men's courts and 3 women's courts on Thursday,
Which is
3
what-
men's courts, 3 women's courts on Friday.
Which is what Cliff said.
Right. So what's wrong with that?
I'd rather not be excluded because we got limited by the court.
Did you hear what she said?
Yeah, I did. So, 16 men who sign up. That means 4 of them are going to get excluded.
Well, I think the point of her argument is if you had the opportunity for Thursday or Friday, some number of men would decide to play on Thursday, and therefore you'd be less likely to have a limitation on people playing on Friday. Like, for instance, Tom would sign up to play on Thursday and not Friday. I might do the same thing, because it might not matter to me. But John would stay on Friday, you'd probably stay on
It
Friday.
would ease
but
the
if
pressure
you're-
on Friday.
I think that's gonna make Tessa's job a heck of a lot tougher to mention.
Yeah, thanks, John. No extra organized play days.
Okay, so that's a knockout from your viewpoint, having another organized play day.
Oh, no, I mean, I think just doing the survey first is.
All right, so you'll take care of that? You can just do the men's?
Yeah.
Do we agree this is primarily a men's decision? We understand the desire for us to move, but if we move, it's potentially us that are being impacted, so we ought to be the ones polled, or do we want to poll everyone? Karen, what do you think?
Well, I think the women just, maybe I'm incorrect, but it just seems to make so much more, it's common sense to the women that the men's day should be Thursday. So,
But you're not answering my question.
I think we need to pull.
I don't think you need to poll the women, I think the women would be.
That's what I think.
And see, I think we do, just to have on paper the support of ladies wanting the change. So I'd like to pull both sides, and it sounds like this is something that we
All right,
need
have
to
at it.
work out over the next
Have at it.
few months, because we're talking a 2020 implementation if something changes, correct?
We haven't talked about time. We worry about that when it comes to it. Just, if you do poll everyone, I still feel like the people who are being moved, the people who are potentially being impacted, their input carries a little more weight than those who are asking for them to move, if you may understand what I'm saying. So it's not, if it's not a majority rules decision, is what I guess what I'm saying, in my opinion. Okay.
Let's get the data first, and then we can.
Totally in favor of that.
head down to it.
Maybe when you do the poll, I asked this question about splitting up Thursday, Friday for men, because that is a potential solution, see if there's much support for that. All right, thank you. Well, that was easy. Did you notice which way I voted? All right, the next item 7 is, I think, Ray, your input, more clinics to encourage play. Can you just talk about that for a minute?
Well, we don't have any clinics for men, and it's a cheaper lesson. So it's gonna be pretty nice.
So Ray, thank you for coming last year. I offered men's Tuesday to try
It
to
doesn't matter
accommodate.
who they're for.
They're finished though.
Yeah. I'm just saying what I offered last year and why I don't offer it right now. So I did try Tuesday, I tried Friday morning, and then for a few times I had one come, like Ben Whipple came once. But then the feedback was, oh, we don't want to play for 3 hours, because that's a lot at a time. And I tried Thursday afternoon, and you came to that one a few times. So in general, every time I've tried to offer like a male clinic or either a mixed doubles clinic, I'm just not getting participation.
That's fine.
I'm getting 1 or 2 at the most, and then it kind of drops off to 0. So that's just, I mean, that's how it is. Next month, I would love to offer a Thursday. We'll have a third pro here, and he'll be coaching here on Thursdays. I'd love to bring back the clinic at like 9 a.m. or 10 a.m. We can make that a men's clinic if you'd like. I'm happy to offer anything you'd like that will get consistent participation of. So that's up to you guys. If you want it, awesome. I'm happy to offer it.
If we want it, ask you, right? And if
Yeah.
enough people ask you, then you're supported.
Yeah, and I'm happy to put
That's a fair
anything on the schedule. I'm just saying, there's a reason why, like this winter and now,
Right.
they've tapered off. Because last year I tried Tuesday, I tried Friday, I tried Thursday afternoon. You know, I tried a lot of different things, and it's just not steady.
I think that's fair.
Peter?
Tell people to come see you if they
To
want.
her point, and it is a participation issue, I signed up last year thinking that it'd be a bunch of men who would show up from intermediate or 4.0 or something. And it was Eileen Smith and myself. And we were just absolutely physically exhausted, the two of us, getting to get started. So there needs to be more people showing up, and if I get the people, that's fine.
Okay. Any other comments on that subject?
Can you
Yes,
include
go
that
ahead.
in your little, can you include that in your survey that you're doing and say, are people interested, what are they interested in? If they're interested, what's the, respective timeframe that they would be interested in attending?
Yeah, we
Just
have,
imagine if you're doing a survey, you might as well put some other people in it.
we have had some nice participation at Glassy, like Bruce and John, you go Thursday morning for the Florida drill, and Dan, that's been really nice. So that's just taken a couple of years to get there, but that seems to be going really well, but I'd love to include more here, certainly.
Okay, we'll add it in there. I've got 2 other items I don't want to have a lot of discussion on, but I'll bring them up because there's people that couldn't come that expressed this hope. One person said they would like to see a unisex bathroom near the car park. I don't know if that's been brought up or there's any kind of long-range plan, but it keep people from having to come up here to go to the bathroom. That's come up in the past as well. The other one is a request for a backboard, or you go out and just hit on your own, either on the basketball courts or one of the hard courts. So those are 2 items. I want to make sure you guys heard and make sure you're aware of the desire.
Yes, Mr. Lau sent me that email, so.
Okay. Does anybody else have any items they want to bring up? There's things you'd like to see on the
What
tennis
about the
court?
landscaping?
Say again?
The landscaping?
Improved landscaping or
Around
landscaping
the
period?
courts? Yeah, we used to have flower pots and
Good point.
bushes going.
And
Yeah,
Cliff?
just general appearance would be, I second the motion. We kind of skirted around this. Could we get maybe some type of a plan on watering, noontime watering? You're talking about scheduling, maybe a noontime watering thing, so let's say from 12:30 to 1:30 every day, you water the courts so people know that. Because the courts are getting dry. You just let everyone know 12:30 to 1:30 is watering time.
But like, you know, clay courts change every day what they need, so I don't think we need to advertise there's a certain time every day that they're gonna be watered.
Once again, every other club in the country does this.
But we also find that there is a lull in play, and we operate around that in an effective way. So if there is, let's say from 12 to 2, we're finding that there's downtime in play. What we'll do is we'll go and implement a watering system on 2 courts, knowing they're going to be, let's say, wet for 30 minutes, right? That still leaves 4 to 6
If you can do that, if you can do that, that's good too. But, you know, once again, if you're trying to avoid people coming down here and of course being wet, letting them know that typically we water in less time would help to minimize people coming from Glassy that come down and find wet courts, and we're trying to, once again, keep the courts, you know, in in better shape because they didn't get too dry in the day.
When you do water, do you do 2 courts at a time, or you do them all?
That's what I'm saying. We do 2 courts at a time. We wait for those 2 to dry before moving on to the next 2 courts before moving on to the next.
That's good, that's just a lot more work for you guys.
Well, but to your point, it can also be implemented, I mean, to conversely Des's point is that they need something different every single day. And the more that we dig into these clay courts, the more that we understand about them, the
Yeah, no
more.
argument there, no argument there.
All right, other input? Yes.
Could we please have the next tennis meeting on a Monday or a Wednesday after tennis?
Oh, Francis.
I don't see why not,
It's
particularly
twice as many
if you'd
days.
like to organize it, I think that'd be a great way to do it. You need the next meeting?
This is the first meeting we've had in 4 years, so I mean, it's not like this is a big issue.
But I mean, really, there are twice as many men here because it's Tuesday. You know, the ladies from Lassie.
I'm happy for someone to
Walnut
organize
Cove,
a
and
meeting.
then they play here, but they're not gonna come from me.
I'm a volunteer.
Oh, why don't we do the meeting?
I don't see a problem with that. Need somebody to step up, Karen, come on, fix it. What other input do we have? I've heard that the day we meet. I'm biased, but if somebody else wants to organize it, I will come, I promise you that. What else we have? Okay, you've heard some input on things like landscaping and backboard and bathrooms. I think you've heard those things before. You can decide what you want.
One thing that I want to point out here is that the heavy investment that's been made, not only in terms of funding, but also in terms of time, and we have put a lot of time and consistency into this project, are the court conditions themselves, and making sure that those are, those improve the experience every single time. So, I totally understand the concept of the landscaping, but again, our focus has been from an investment of funding and of time investment has been on improving the actual playing condition for the players to improve their experience. Because, you know, you can make something immaculate and
You're
inviting.
doing the right thing, you gotta go after the courts.
Right.
If you got only so much money, you gotta fix the courts.
We put a plan in
No doubt
place
about that.
about, 18 months ago, 20 months ago, and to Ryan's point, we were strategic in the decisions we
Yeah.
made. It's not like we just said, oh, let's try this. We wanted to get the courts up to a sustainable playability.
I don't think
standpoint.
anybody's arguing that. I
It's
think the
exactly
input is,
what
what do we do next?
And
that's
we
what
will
the input's
continue to
gonna
do
be.
that, and we will continue as we free up money once we've solved the lack of playability or the deterioration of the courts because of years of not reinvesting that allows us to free up some money to attack those aesthetic pieces.
That's right.
But our commitment is going to remain to get the courts to the level that you all deserve, and once we get that and that's stable, then we'll start to tackle some of the other projects. So we don't have a money tree in the backyard that we're just shaking to get this.
Just one more thing, everybody just keep praying for indoor courts. For Mountain Park, that they put in some indoor courts for all these thousands of days we can't play.
Right after your clubhouse.
Yeah.
Oh, we don't need a clubhouse. We don't need a clubhouse. We
Any
need
other
tennis
input?
courts.
I hope somebody gets squabbled.
Make it quick.
My favorite subject, please sweep the courts when you're done. Thank you.
All right.
One point on the reservation system.
Yes.
Test. I've emailed you a couple times. Always feels I'm getting caught by about an hour or two of the
Yeah.
shutdown. Maybe rather than a 5 p.m. cutoff from 2 days ahead of time, maybe an 8 p.m. cutoff. So that, you know, again, I'm looking at my schedule. It may not solve it, but for me, I've got caught a couple of times by less than an hour about it. Oh, I forgot. Sunday night, I forgot. Let me go try to sign on.
That must be one of
You
the.
gotta
See,
get
that
up.
I
was
must be
the
doing it after
complaint.
5.
Yeah.
Can you at least think about that, Tess?
Just to say one more thing, that was the complaint for us, when Jack was even here, we said it. It's so late. I mean, yes, you may make a decision last minute, but it's so late, then she's scrambling, we played at 8
I'm
o'clock.
not talking about 2 days. I'm
Yeah.
saying give me a couple more hours.
So the reason it was chosen to be 5 is that's kind of before, like, we might have cocktails for dinner or something like that, rather than, you know, because sometimes people are done like on the computer.
I just
for the
offer it as
day.
a suggestion.
Yeah, I think we should just keep it for now as is, because if we just keep making changes, I think that's more confusing than anything
I
else.
think
So
if
we'll
we
just-
make it 6 or
we'll see.
7 or 8 p.m., it's likely that people will continue having the same challenges at 6 or 7 or 8
Yeah.
p.m.
All right,
But yeah, I'm
you've heard the
happy.
input, you feel your response is the same as it before.
Thank you to
Good job.
everybody.
Good job.
You guys just need to get up a little earlier for the.
It was nice meeting you.